Today we have tennis legend Mr. Gaurav Natekar. Welcome, sir, to the Fitter family.
Thank you. Thank you.
We will today talk a little about sports. We will talk about what it takes to follow your passion and a lot more. Sir, allow me a few minutes to give a brief introduction of you to the Fitzins. Mr. Natekar is an icon in Indian tennis. He is a 7-time national tennis champion. He is a double gold medalist at the 94 Asian Games, and he received the prestigious Arjuna Award in 96. He is currently a CII national, he's on the CII National Committee of Sports, and he's also advisor to the Tata Trust for their CSR initiatives. He hails from a family of sports persons, and even his father had received an Arjuna Award in 61 and was a celebrated badminton player of his time. Sir, I read about your father that he was the first Indian to win an international title in sports in 1956.
Yes, correct. Actually, he is one of the original legends of Indian sport in a sense, and everybody else who followed in badminton, actually took his example. So yeah, I mean, he's been at it since the early 50s. So yes.
Wow. So, sir, tell us how did tennis happen to you? And you must have started playing badminton and then switched at some stage. Is that right?
No, actually, we used to live in Bandra in Bombay and Khar, and there used to be the Khar Gymkhana, which was right opposite, and I could see the tennis courts from the balcony. And when I was young, I didn't know who my father was. At the age of 5 or 6, I didn't know, what he did. I mean, I sort of knew that he played badminton, but I was never really. I never enjoyed the indoors. In fact, I still don't. I much prefer to be outdoors. So my father, luckily did force me into badminton. He just wanted me to play some sport. So we went to the club, and I tried swimming, I tried badminton, I tried tennis, I tried a whole bunch of sports, but I just enjoyed being outdoor. So for a long time, till the age of 10 or 11 almost, I was doing swimming and tennis, which were both outdoor sports. But then I just liked tennis better, and that's why I went ahead with tennis.
Okay. And in your early years, can you share with us some of the lessons you learned about what sports taught you? And can you share an incident that drove that lesson home?
Well, I think that the biggest thing that one sport teaches you is really how to be disciplined and committed. You don't realize it at that point in time, but as youngsters, as kids, all they want to do is they just want to go out and play. And in fact, today, parents, I deal a lot, being a parent myself, and I'm dealing a lot with parents. I feel that parents today are putting a lot of pressure on their kids. And kids just want to go out and play. They don't care whether it's 10 degrees, 20 degrees, or 40-degree heat, and they are able to absorb all of that. So for me, the big lessons really was that if one has to succeed at something, there has to be a certain focus and there has to be continuity.
Right. So just focus and just stay at it.
Yeah.
That is what you learned early.
Yes.
In your life. And sir, as a competitive tennis player, do you remember a time which you would call as like a challenging period for you? Can you recall that for us, and how did you overcome it?
No, so I think that every challenge, every day is a challenge in sport. I keep telling a lot of people that if there is when you get a degree, an MBA or a doctor, that remains for the rest of your life. But with sport, every day is different. Every week is different. In tennis, you might win today, you might lose tomorrow. You might win this week, but next week you might lose first round. Right. So these are challenges day in and day out that one has to face being a professional athlete. And I think that is really what is the beauty of sport, but also that is why sport is so tough and it's so brutal. And a lot of people are not able to handle it.
Right. So, sir, after a loss, like, what did you say to yourself to come back and go after it the next day? How did you
So I
feel?
think, well, I think different people treat losses differently. You know, you can't win every time. Even today in business, or sometimes in life, we face setbacks and losses. I tell myself the same thing what I used to tell myself at that time, which is that, how bad is this? Point number one, and will this really matter 6 months from now or a year from now, right? So that's what it. Those are the lessons.
That's a wonderful analogy, though, also to the things that life throws at us. So, thank you for that lesson, sir. That you just have to put it in perspective and think, how is it going to be a few months from now, a few years from now?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So, in your view, do you believe that sporting talent is inborn, or do you think it is something that can be developed?
I think it can be developed. I think it can be developed.
Okay.
I think sporting talent. That I keep saying that there are different talents. Uh, you know, some people keep saying, or a lot of people say that, oh, he works hard. But even hard work is a talent. It doesn't come easily, right? So I think that talent, part of it is inborn, but a lot of it also is just you develop it through years and years of practice and hard work.
Okay. So, some of it is inborn.
Yeah,
Rest, you need to put in the time and put.
correct, correct.
So, sir, just staying on that a little more, for those of our members who have, young aspiring sports persons at home,
Yeah.
what are the ingredients that a young talent needs to blossom?
So I think the first thing is that the child needs to enjoy what he's doing, right? And it should not be the parent telling the child what he should enjoy, but the child who should actually be enjoying it, right? And that is the most important thing, because a lot of kids today are forced into things by their parents, by social pressure, by their family, by their friends and stuff. But the key to doing anything successfully is to really enjoy it. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, all your members on Fitter enjoy fitness. That's why they're on this platform. That's why they do fitness. I mean, if you don't enjoy it, you're never going to do it seriously. And I think that is more and more getting lost with this whole competitive environment, this whole obsession with screen time that the kids have, whether it's your iPad or your PSP or TV or phone or whatever it is.
Yes, yes. So I have a few comments from our live feed here. We are live in the
Okay.
Fitter group, and the
Okay.
members here are saying hello to you, good morning, welcome to Fitter.
Okay.
Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the group, and I'll be sure to ask Sir before the session gets over. So please post your questions. So in our country, when it comes to infrastructure, we are still lagging. And there are people who have the talent, but sometimes they don't have either the financial needs or, a good infrastructure to make them world-class players. Is it possible to overcome such challenges?
No, most definitely. I mean, every sports person who has achieved anything at any level in India, honestly, has done it in spite of the federation, not because of the federation. I think obviously federations are now getting slightly better, but I think we still have a long way to go. And you have to just see the kind of fillip that sports has got and sports people have got in the last 5 to 10 years, right? I mean, we've got so many big achievers in shooting, wrestling, badminton, tennis, so many other sports. So I definitely think that yes, the odds are stacked a lot against our athletes for a number of reasons, but that also makes them hungrier to succeed. I mean, if you look at a country like England or UK, they have some of the best facilities. They have so much of money, or at least they had for the last so many years, but they were just not able to produce the kind of players and the kind of athletes that was in line or commensurate with the kind of facilities and monies that they were getting.
Yes. And India being a country of 1.2 billion, I'm sure we can do better. And I'm sure that so
Correct.
then I would say the next thing would be, what would be your advice to parents who have, budding talent in their family and their kids have sporting dreams? What would be your advice to them?
No, I think again the first advice is let them go out and enjoy the sport. I mean, that is why they started the sport in the first place. Um, um, I understand from a parent's perspective because I've been a parent, I've been a coach, I've been a player as well. That there's a lot of pressure on the parents financially, emotionally, morally, lots of sacrifices that parents and everybody else has to make. So we need to understand that while yes, the parent is making the financial sacrifice as well, the minute you pass it on to the child actually starts feeling an extra pressure. And I know it's easier said than done, but I think that is really the key to ensuring that if you want your child to pursue the sport, he or she needs to be given that freedom to trust his trainer, his coach, his psychologist, and the parent's job is to just morally and financially support them.
Okay. Okay.
The
So that
biggest disaster, the biggest disaster comes when the parent tries to interfere in the technical part of the sport, or in trying to thinking that because he's watched that particular sport so much because of his child, that he can actually start coaching the child. That is a recipe for disaster.
they get anxious about the
Yes,
progress.
yes, yes.
So we'll take a question from one of our members. So this is Harshit Sanil. He says he's 30 years old and a marathon runner and ultra endurance cyclist. He wants to know if he can become an Olympian and what is required to become an Olympian.
So I think that triathletes and Ironmans and things, a lot of people are doing it now. But to really become an Olympian, one needs to focus on what sport he or she wants to do. So given that he's 30 years old, perhaps running or cycling is something that he could look at. It's never too late to chase one's dreams, but one has to be focused. Obviously, one can't play multiple sports, so one has to decide what sport he or she wants to do, and then go at it successfully.
Okay, so Harshit, message for you is just decide and go for it. It's never too late to follow your
Correct.
dreams.
Correct.
We have another question from Srijata. She's saying, how important is it to inspire and children to join sports so that they become inclined to sports? So should you push your children indirectly into sports? Apart from being fit parents themselves, what are the ways in which you can bring sports into a child's life?
So I think the important thing is to make sure that you introduce the child to sport. Typically, I say that from the age of 5 to the age of 10, ideally the child should be introduced to as many sports as possible, because every sport will help him develop a different part of his body and different part of him mentally. Playing a team sport will obviously ensure that he has to work with his other teammates, like football or hockey or any of the team sports, cricket, right? So the child at a very young age will learn how to work in a team environment, how to handle success and failure in a team environment, right? And then an individual sport teaches a child how to be self-motivated, how to be disciplined, how to think for himself on his feet, right? Because in any sport, you have a second or maybe even less to take so many decisions on what you want to do with the tennis ball or the hockey ball. You have to know where your opponent is. So there are multiple things going on, right? And I think that till the age of 10 or 11, the child should play multiple sports. After that, the child is old enough and he will himself take a decision of whether he wants to pursue a particular sport or he doesn't enjoy sport and he wants to get into academics.
Okay. Okay, so Srijata, as many sports as you can introduce to them till the age of 11 and 12, as Sir said, and then the child is old enough to say his preferences and see where he wants to go. Thank you, Sir, for that. So when it was time for you to stop playing competitively, how did you prepare yourself for like that career transition? And did you consciously want to stay connected to sports and tennis?
So unfortunately, in India, most athletes don't have that high an education. So a lot of them by default have to get into coaching or training. For me, my retirement from the sport was quite early comparatively. I retired at the age of 26 or 27 because I realized that I didn't have a business to fall back on. I didn't come from a business family, and I knew that I wanted to do business. I knew that I didn't want to do coaching, and I knew that I wanted to do business. And I realized, but I used to read a lot. My mother was a doctor, so I got the reading habits from her. And I realized that if I wanted to get into business and I had to learn things for myself, it's best if I stop playing and start focusing on business, because every athlete, professional athlete or sports person, has their first innings, which is their playing career, and then their second innings, which is their career after they stop playing. So I think it's important for me. The decision was not so much about when to do it, but about how to transition from being a professional tennis player to getting into business.
That is really early, sir, for
Yeah.
a professional player to decide, okay, this is now on to the next.
Yeah. I think the times were also different. So there was not so much funding available at that point. There was no TV. There was certainly no social media. So I think that, I had already been India number one for a few years and things. And then there were a couple of other players that were coming up. And I just felt that it was the right time. And like I said, by that time, surprisingly, it was already seeming like a chore. It was already seeming like, oh, I have to get up and go and train and stuff like that. And when that happens, then you know that you need to move ahead.
I guess that happens in a lot of players' lives. I've read a few documentaries of cricketers and also big tennis legends, and they
Correct.
say the same thing. So your body tells you, or your mind tells you, now it's time to go on to next other things. And so how did you transition, like your transition into business? How did you build that up? So you are a tennis legend and a very successful businessman. How did you build those innings?
So I think that the second innings was a lot tougher for me, because when you're young and you're playing, you're just enjoying the sport, and things just happened. I kept winning and things started to fall into place. Of course, there were a lot of sacrifices and a hell of a lot of hard work and blood, sweat and tears. But for the business journey, really, I had to again start from scratch. So I had, like I said, no business background. So I had some of my earnings that I invested in a sports and fitness store here in Pune, and which we expanded, and ran it and owned it for about 16 or 17 years. And then subsequently, things started to fall into my lap in terms of some advising and consulting work, infrastructure, academies, and all of that. So I think for me, it was more about trial and learn. I didn't have an MBA from an Ivy League college, or whatever MBA I had was from my travels, playing for the country, which is a huge learning. I mean, I think that's worth more than I would like to think that it's worth more than a lot of MBAs that a lot of students get. So that was really my learning, and it was all a trial and error process, because there were not too many sports people who got into business. Again, I'm talking 25 years ago, 20 plus years ago. So it was a challenge, but and there were a lot of tough times. Luckily my wife is also an ex-India number one tennis player, so that obviously helped. So we both kind of were finding our feet, and thankfully we've landed on safe ground so far, at least. I don't know what the next 2 years is going to bring with the whole pandemic situation, but we'll see.
Yes, it's something that all businesses, everyone's struggling with, even people at home. They want to go out and play.
Yeah.
We have a question from Aditya Sehgal. He says, is it the time to include fitness and nutrition in syllabus of young school-going kids?
I think definitely. I think this is something that that a lot of organizations and a lot of people in the sporting and fitness ecosystem are already talking about. I'm sure Fitter is also, looking at that or already doing it at some level. I think more than nutrition, fitness and basic health is something that needs to be really pushed. And I think the government of India and the state governments now really need to make this mandatory. If anything that this pandemic has taught us is that if our children's immunity levels and their health levels are not up to the mark, right, there is a danger of catching not only this disease but any disease. And I think that this virus has brought that to the forefront. And I think that WHO says that each child should play 60 minutes a day outdoors. In India, the average time is 4 minutes that a child spends. So that's the kind of difference and the kind of gap that we have. And that's why our kids, we are the second largest or obesity country in the world. So much of depression, mental and physical, that our kids are going through, and the only thing that can get rid of that is exercise, sport, fitness. So I think that is very, very crucial, and it definitely should be included. And there is a move to do it. It might take some more time, but at some point it has to happen. We don't have a choice.
Yes. Yes. We have a lot more comments, but given we have only a few minutes with you, let me just come back to do you still play tennis in like leisure, for leisure? And if you do, what does sports bring to your life now?
So honestly, I don't play that much of tennis. In fact, very rarely, because again, it's something that I did as a job for the last, for the first 20, 25, 30 years of my life. So, but I do exercise regularly. I do exercise at least 5 times a week. I play a lot of badminton, of course, before the lockdown, and hopefully I'll get to it. So typically, whenever I'm in Pune in the mornings, I'll go and play badminton for an hour, hour and a half. And then we do some exercises and stretching and fitness and stuff. In the lockdown period, actually, we've been exercising a lot as a family, doing just various exercises. Luckily, we are in a building which is a small building, so we have a terrace and an area downstairs where we can actually exercise. But exercise is very much a part of my life, because I like to get up and finish the exercise, because that really keeps me fresh and alert all day. So typically what I now do is I try and have I work out 5 days a week, take a break in the middle. Out of the 5 days, I would say 4 days are a heavy workout, and one day would be focused more on stretching and mobility and stuff. And then 2 days of the week I take off, because I'm 48 now, so the body also needs time to recover. Plus, there's a lot of other interests now in terms of going out, meeting friends. Of course, not in the lockdown, but so all of that one has to kind of balance and take into account.
So that's something that I think everyone in the fitter group here in the community will just give you thumbs up on. And you need to continue growing. Age is not a limit. Thank you.
No, absolutely not. But I think that, one has to also understand where one is at what stage in life, and because overtraining is also a huge issue now. Overtraining, which is leading to injury, and some serious injuries at that. So that also one has to be careful about.
Very true, sir. Thank you for that. And what are you looking forward to in the next few years now?
Well, I'm looking forward to just going out and being free, for one. I think the whole world is looking for that. But I think, I think what I'm looking forward to is to see how this pandemic and COVID-19 has affected sports in India and globally. Sports is not exactly a priority in India, and fitness, but I'm hoping that it will be at the forefront now, because health is going to be a huge aspect going forward. I'm hoping that a business which has suffered can get back to its original form, which I know will take some time, hopefully not too much time. Um, but yeah, I think we've also been, at least I have been lucky that I've got this time with the family and I've been able to get into a routine of, a little more exercise and stuff like that. So yeah, lots to look forward to. I think that this is a temporary phase. It will pass. And I think everybody just needs to stay positive, stay sane, stay fit, of course.
Okay, so thank you so much for the positive messages, the inspiration, and just the advice to everyone to follow their passion. And that is what Fitter is all about, to follow your passion, stay fit, be healthy, and stay positive. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.